Hello, we are back. We are back with our series of lives, and today we're starting with Tinta Roriz and a very special guest, Manuel Lobo. And yeah, I'm excited to talk to him about everything to do with Tinta Roriz in terms of viticulture, winemaking, about his wine, about a little bit about his career. And I can see people joining us already from all over the world, friends from Europe, friends from Brazil. So thanks for the waves, and I'm going to look out for Manuel and start this live. Feel free at any time to send your questions, and I will endeavor to answer. Obviously, I'm quite confident that Manuel is the variety. So I just invited him, and he is joining us from Algarve. Here he is. Hello, my friend Manuel. How are you doing?
Hello, my friend. Dirceu. Very well, thank you.
Very good. I was just introducing you very briefly and telling everyone that it's very kind of you because you actually taken a little bit of your holiday time to spend with us to talk about Tinta Roriz.
It's a great pleasure, Dirceu. Always talking with you and discussing a very interesting matter, which great variety that I love, and it's a great opportunity also to open a bottle before dinner and so it's
I got 3 bottles here, and I'm looking forward to sharing with you. I did a little bit of very quick research because most people would know who Manuel Lobo is. He's a winemaker of Quinta do Crasto, one of the great producers in Douro. But I did a little bit of digging today, Manuel, and I found out that you came from a family of people in the industry. Your mother and your father were both in the industry. Is that right?
Yeah, exactly. I have the genetics of wine. They come from both sides, from my father and from my mother. Both producers of wine in Portugal. From my mother's side, mainly the Vinho Verde region, and also Vinho de Carcavelos, which is a fortified wine. Sadly, it's not seen very much, but it's a great product and very interesting wine. And from my father's side, from the Alentejo, the wine region of Alentejo, and also from the Tejo wine region. So it's very familiar for me, the vineyards, the wine, since I was a child. So
it is in one of your it is on your DNA.
Yeah,
so today exactly. I want to take this time to speak to you. I spoke to you before about this variety, but I want to share. I mean, your knowledge of Tinta Roriz is amazing. So I wanted to share with people. And the first thing I have is it is the most planted variety in Portugal. But you rarely see either Aragonez or Tinta Roriz on the label. Why is that, in your opinion?
Tinta Roriz, it's like you said, it's the most planted grape variety in Portugal, and I believe it's because it's normally a high productive variety, not everywhere, and we can talk about that later. But it's very common in the Alentejo. You can find a lot of Tinta Roriz in the Douro as well. All around Portugal, you can find Tinta Roriz. And it's like you say, it's not very common to see single variety wines of Tinta Roriz. I believe because it's a challenging grape variety to produce as a single variety wine. You know, a winemaker has the role when we have several different varieties to put in a final blend. I think it's easier, in my opinion, to achieve almost perfection, because perfection, I don't know if it is possible, but we are trying to get there every day. But I think it's easier if we have different varieties that can be complete when we blend it, And when we have a single variety wine, because all the grape varieties, in my opinion, there is not a super complete grape variety in the world. There are some varieties that are more complete than others, and Roriz, it's not an exception. So it's a very challenging grape varieties to produce, and very challenging in the way that we need to take care in viticulture terms in the vineyard, and also in the winery. It's very important to manage that with very a lot of detail, and a lot of I believe a lot of precision. It's
Yeah,
very important.
I want to talk to you about that precision in the vineyard and also precision in the winery. But I had a friend from São Paulo, Gilson. He already posed a question, but he sent me a question before the live actually, asking how the plantings of Tinta, Roriz, or Aragonez evolving. It's a difficult question, in my opinion, to answer because I haven't seen really new statistics from the IVV, but I compared 2017 when I had with 2019, the last set of figures I have seen, and it's actually it has lost a little bit of vineyard area. Can you share anything from the inside? Do you see people planting less or people planting more?
I believe in the Douro there is not a lot of people betting in Tinta Roriz now. But I think there is a variety that people plant, like in the Alentejo, it's known by Aragonez, and it's a variety that is still planted. But I believe it's becoming less popular, and because it's very challenging to work with. But if we go here to our neighbors, as you can see the Tempranillo, which is the same as Tinta Roriz, it's the main variety, and it's such a good grape variety that it's so important in my opinion, for the top wines in the final blends. And also, it's something that you can find very often, and with a good percentage in the old vineyards of the Douro that you can find in the old vines. It's super, and I believe it's a great variety. The difficulty is how to manage that, and I think we need to look at the grape variety as, in my opinion, if I have an adjective to the or a name, I think it's very important for the longevity of the wines, and if we can manage well the tannins, it can be a super grape variety, and we can achieve great wines with that.
So let's talk a little bit about vineyard in terms of viticulture. What does it need any special care? What are the specific requirements?
I think the biggest challenge of Roriz is the maturation of the phenolics, and to have a balanced maturation of the berries. That's very important. So you need to have balance between acidity, between concentration, of course, sugar. But also the maturation of the phenolics, it's the most important thing, because if the tannins, they don't mature well, the wine can be a little bit too vegetal, and we won't reach the elegance and that we desire. But for me, the issue, before talking about viticulture management, I think it's the most important thing for me. It's the right place to plant Tinta Roriz, so the right terroir. It's a variety that it's very important for us to make sure that we don't have a block of the maturation of the fruit. Otherwise, it's very difficult to recover, and the tannins will be very dry and green. And the flavors, the aromatics won't develop as in elegant side. and it will be much more rustic wine and not very interesting. So it's very important, the management during the maturation season of the variety, and making sure that we don't have a block, so that the vines, they have all the necessary conditions to keep going and keep working and keep transforming the acids into sugar, and that we have good skins with a good relation between pulp and skin. So not big berries and big bunches, because that can be out of control, and you can have well, the issue is balance. So if you have a terroir with a lot of water, it will be very vegetal, and the phenolics will be difficult to achieve the right balance. And if you have a soil that it doesn't have any water, they can block, the maturation can block, and can be very difficult to recover the maturation going, and to keep going the maturation, and to make sure that we achieve the right maturation of the tannins. So it's challenging. That's why we don't produce this grape variety every year, for instance, in Kraft, but it's very interesting.
Yeah, it's interesting because there were some questions here. Why, in terms of why are people planting less or taking? I think we're going to come. There is something to do with global climate change, and I want to talk to you about that in later on. But one of the things, Manuel, I remember when I was studying, and I don't know if you're going to agree with this. I used to. It is Tempranillo by itself. It was very hard for me to nail, because there's so many different styles. You find some really light and elegant, even not so much color, and you find something more concentrated with American oak, and okay, what could be and sometimes if they age a little bit, they get those earthy undergrowth, and I said, wow, what is this? Could it be something? Could it be Italian wine? So it was very confusing, and still is confusing. But then when I start reading and studying, there are a huge number of clones, and so people think, oh, they have. I read one book, Tempranillo has thin skin, and another book has thick skin, and so on and so forth. But I think there is one of the reasons. Obviously, there's a winemaking interpretation and how we're going to vinify and everything else, but there's also a huge amount of clones. Can you share a little bit of your, do you know anything about clonal selection? Because I've seen studies that there are more than 250 clones of Tempranillo, Tinta, Roriz, etc.
Yeah, no, it's you're totally right. It's one of the varieties that is more studied, and we can find a lot of different clones of Tempranillo, and also some clones of Tinta Roriz. We are actually, Portugal is doing now a huge research and about all of the clones that exist, and there is a association which is a Porvid, which is a food with all the clones that you find here in Portugal, and Tinta Roriz has a lot of them. You can find differences on the clones for sure, some more productive than others, but the majority of the clones that were studied in the past were focused on production, on no diseases, on having every year being very consistent and very productive. And some of the factors that were missed at the time was that nowadays are concerned. So it's a variety that normally we get a very high alcohol, so very high levels of sugar. So nowadays, probably, I think it should be interesting to study clones that have less sugar potential, because of all of the global the situation. Also to have good freshness, not so much a huge productive vine, so a much more balanced vine, smaller bunches with a better relation between skin and pulp. So the berry be with a lower diameter to achieve the right balance. But of course, you can have different clones. But if you don't have the right terroir, it won't work. So you have all the different pieces of these big puzzle. They need to be right, and you need to adapt that to the right to the right place. So I go again here to the soil, and for me it's very important because I can share the experience that we have at Quinta do Crasto, that we had some parts where we used to have Tinta Roriz, and it doesn't work there because the soil is not the right soil for that. It's very important, in my opinion, that the soil has some capacity to retain some water, some winter water, and should be dry, needs to be dry, but with some capacity to retain some water. And I believe it's about that. So you know, the wine, I believe every day the wines they are made. So in the winery, what we need to do is to make sure that we pick at the right day, the optimum days, that we don't miss the right day of picking.
Yeah.
And making sure that we also we don't damage the balance that comes from the vineyard in the winery, because that's very important.
Yeah, there's a comment here from Gilson in Brazil. If the terroir must be dry, I think it's Tempranillo, to my view, likes heat, likes dry, but it has, as Manuel said, it has to have a degree of water or maybe clay in the soil that retains water to avoid hydric stress. Because as soon as there's hydric stress, there is block maturation, and then you have very dry tannins. That's my opinion. But thanks for the question. Thanks for the comments. And I can see people here from Brazil, from Sweden, from Poland. So it's great to see people from everywhere. I think I'm gonna taste. We've got 3 wines, but before that, I think the tannins are so important in Tempranillo. And you alluded to tannins, and you mentioned picking dates. What is tell us here? If you stay in Algarve for the rest of your holiday, and we have to do the harvest for you at Crasto, what are the tricks? What do we have to look for by the telephone? Say this, or all of us here, we pick the Tempranillo this way. What are you gonna tell us?
So it's not. I don't believe that it's possible to do wine by the phone. Well,
I know, of course.
You know, but anyway, it's. I believe that's it. You know, sometimes when you walk, for me, it's very important to walk in the vineyard and to taste the berries, and that is much more important for me, how they taste and how I feel the tannins, than a lab analysis. Of course, it's a good support if we have the lab analysis, but it's much more important to the tasting the berries, and so that's why Algarve should will end soon. But for me, the biggest I could share with you guys. For me, the most important, I think there are 3 moments to produce a good Tinta Roriz. The first thing, the picking day. It's very important day. So if we miss the picking day, of course, the potential of the elegance to reach the level of and balance, if we miss the picking day, it will be very difficult to achieve that. Okay, because let's think that I've left the fruit too much time, and so I was late picking. I did a late picking, so I will get the dry aromas, not the freshness. I will lose all the freshness. And the Tinta Roriz, it's a variety that's not very rich in acidity. So it has a high pH. Normally, acidity normally, because there are other terroirs that can give very good acidities. Normally, it's a high pH, low acidity. So if we lose the natural freshness of the fruits, and we get those aromatics and overripe, I think it's very difficult to have a top one. If we pick it too in the other way, if we pick it early, what happens is probably the maturation of the tannins is, and the concentration. So it's a wine that will be in balance all its life. We can try to work that in the winery, but
it's difficult.
If the quality is not there, if we do, let's see, if in the winery we try to do a higher extraction in the winery, but if the tannins are green, it's a mistake. The wine will be very tough in the palate, very hard, very rustic, very difficult. And the aromatics won't be there because it's much more vegetable. So,
I see.
So we
have a few people commenting that our sound is your sound is breaking up a little bit. Sorry about that, guys. We'll do our best.
Okay.
With the sound. The sound is what our friends from Instagram gave us, so hopefully it will improve. But in the meantime, what I'm going to do, I'm going to show you guys what I'm going to be looking at. There are 3 wines that I'm going to taste. One is Monte d'Oro from Lisbon, then Aragonez from Alentejo, and then the wine from Manuel Quinta do Crasto, which I'm really looking forward to it. I have tasted the wines in the last few minutes. If you guys are able to find those bottles, if you have a glass of wine, fantastic. But it is, as I said earlier, it's difficult to. It is sometimes difficult to find Tempranillo 100%.
So give me a minute. I will try to get some headphones. Okay. So give me a minute.
In the meantime, I'll just take you to a couple of wines. So it's quite difficult to find Tempranillo 100%, but it's great to have 3 Tempranillos from 3 different terroirs. One from Lisbon, Alentejo, and Douro. And the first one I've tasted a few minutes ago. It's surprising for me because it's first of all, it didn't have that much color, which is medium ruby with a little bit of garnet hue. It's a 2015 vintage. And what I love about the wine is the elegance and the subtlety. It is from Lisbon, and I found lots of lovely dark fruits and earth and dried leaves, some black tea, which is descriptors that I find obviously in Tempranillo that's beginning to age, and it's aging very, very beautifully. It's the wine that's not overdone. It's just a good expression of Tempranillo. And the other surprise for me, it was when I turned the back label and I found 13% alcohol. So it's just if I wanted to describe this wine with one word, would be subtlety. It's really a very pure, very elegant, and just not overdone. Really delicious example of Tempranillo. I'm not going to talk so much about Crasto. I'll wait for Manuel to tell us about Crasto, but and just compare this wine from Monte d'Oro, which is here, with Aragonez from Alentejo, and that was different. This wine has been vinified in Lagar, and then it's spent some time in French oak. And this is a slightly deeper, richer color, and lots of fruit, blackberries, blueberries, much more vibrant, opulent style of wine. It does show the terroir of the Alentejo that warmth, and it's had more weight, had more body. So it's actually good to do this tasting. Sadly, we cannot be together, any of us, but it is nice to taste a Tinta Roriz or Aragonez and showing the expression how it changes in different parts of Portugal. And there are two very, very different styles. One is very subtle and elegant, one is much more opulent. And I'm going to leave those wines aside. I want to carry on talking to Manuel. And then I wanted to finish this conversation by talking about his wine specifically. But we talk a little bit about vineyards now. I want to talk to Manuel. If you guys have any questions, thank you, Sophia, for posting the wines that we're tasting. If you guys have a question, those are the vintages. The Monte d'Oro, by the way, is sold in Brazil. It's about 325 real. It's also sold in Canada, mostly on trade, and sold in Holland. And the other one from Alentejo, it's sold in Switzerland, in Luxembourg, in Ireland. So they're widely available. But this it's very, very small production. It's only 4,000, just over 4,000 bottles. And this is, I think they're about to change vintages. But if you can find it, they're pretty good examples of Tinta, Roriz, and Aragonez. Manuel, let's talk about Tinta, Roriz in the vineyard, in the winery. Having the variety in the cellar, what are the advantages? Is it quite easy to manage once it is in the vineyard?
Well, it's a variety that it's easy to manage. It's I don't know if the sound is better. I've moved around.
Yes.
But I don't know. It's the best I can do.
No, it's perfect. I can hear you perfectly.
Okay. So it's a variety that it's quite easy to manage. So the leaf control is very vertical. So it's very easy. And it's a beautiful vine. So normally we can get very good canopies, and but then we need, of course, we need to control it if we want to reach a high quality wine. We need to control in the order to be balanced, the fructification to be well balanced, and also as I was talking to you a while ago, and it's very important to manage well the availability of water during the maturation season. Okay, not too much, and but some, to just make sure that the vines can keep going. Then, of course, you can do some control of some management on the quantity of fruit that you, depending on the objective of the wine that you will produce. So that is something that you control. You can control during flowering, or also during the painting season, veraison. Yeah.
I'm talking about specifically once the grapes are ready in the vineyards, in the winery. I mean, it's quite easy to manage in the winery.
No.
What are the advantages, disadvantages?
Yeah, it's a variety, like because it's so challenging in a vineyard of reaching this balance. In the winery, we need to be very careful. So the tannins are always very present. It's a variety that it has a lot of tannins. So in my opinion, we need to be very careful with the extraction, pumping overs, and délestage, and especially in the latest part of the alcoholic fermentation, because there is when you extract more, because the level of alcohol that you have in the juice is higher, so the extraction it's more aggressive. So it's very important, in my opinion, to taste always before and after one pump over, for instance, and then decide where we should go. Yeah.
But you prefer, is that different? Do you prefer more pigeage or délestage or pump over, as you said, or you do a combination of everything?
I do a combination. We can do a pisage. I think it makes more sense, a pisage in the beginning of the fermentation, and then working with pump over with pump overs, and then délestage. But it's, in my opinion, it should be always a soft extraction. Okay.
Okay. So soft extraction more at the beginning and more careful towards the end.
Yeah. Yeah, very
Okay, great.
careful at the end. And then
Not
there
just
is,
start with blind timings.
I've told you a while ago, there were three very important moments in my opinion. One is picking day. The other one is pressing day. So pressing day, when you decide that you will, the wine, it's the decision when you say, okay, we will end the skin contacts and we will end the extraction. And that moment, it's very important in a winery. And it's something that the winemaker also can't miss, because you can have two things. You can extract it too much, and that can unbalance the wine, or you probably after the wine is made, you say, okay, I should have extracted this a little bit more, and because the wine would be better balanced, and so it's very interesting as well.
Do you have experience of trying to vinify specifically to Aragonez now in lagar or in stainless steel or cement, or is there a preference?
Yeah, I've did fermentations in lagar, many in stainless steel tanks and cement as well, and you know, I would say stainless steel at the moment, and then of course, if it is a high quality wine, and then move into barrels, but with high quality barrels and specific barrels that can help the balance of the variety. But of course, cement is a good option as well. But during those 7 days of fermentation, and I don't do extended fermentation in Tinta Roriz, specifically in Crust, I think it's more interesting to do in a stainless steel tank. Okay, if we can do a pisage, or when the grapes come into lagar, that's a good option as well, and then move into stainless steel tanks.
No, I was listening to you and thinking about interesting question. I think if you for this wine specifically, we're about to taste, you know it's going to be a 100% Tinta Roriz, so you vinify the way you described. If you are making Tinta Roriz to be a blending component in another wine, do you vinify it different, or a little bit different, or exactly the same?
No, I will try. When I vinify variety separately, I always try to take to optimize the maximum of that grape variety. Then, if it is an option to do it's a single variety or not, it's a matter of quality. If it doesn't have the quality to be a single variety, of course it will be a good help to a blend wine, because Roriz gives you the length, the tannins, the longevity. It's a great variety. It's for that.
So that was my next question. So what does Tinta Roriz bring to the blend? So those lovely red fruits, dark fruits, very fine tannins, and then as I say, the length.
When the tannins are good, for me, are the best tannins. It's the variety.
Oh, really?
Well, when we reach the silky tannins, and they are massive tannins, but it's very difficult to achieve the right maturation of the tannins. But when they're good, they are very good, and it's a wine that needs maturation in a bottle. So I believe it's very important to drink it with a few years in a bottle to understand how it works, the Roriz.
Yeah, this is what I'm noticing now. I've got 3 bottles here, 3 really great wines, but all of them, as you said, they all have some time in a bottle, 2015 and 2016. On that note, what is when was the first vintage for Crasto of 100% Tinta Roriz?
1998. 1997. Sorry, I believe 1997. And it's
any bottles of that left?
Yeah, a few. and
how are you tasting?
It's an amazing wine. It's an amazing wine. It needs it really needs time to reach the elegance and the right balance and the other level of complexity, and so it's really a wine that we don't look for the primary aromas, but we look for the bottle aging and the complexity, and I think that's only time will give that. So I believe of Crasto, of Tinta do Crasto. I believe this is one of the wines that can age better and longer, in my opinion.
Oh, that's good. I just remember I haven't tasted many Tinta Roriz. They are more than 20 years old, but I have been very lucky. I've tasted some Tempranillo who are, I mean, the oldest I can remember is 1919. So it's well over 100 years old, and it's still drinkable. I'm not going to say it's an amazing wine. It was from a good producer, but it was still alive. It was still drinkable.
1919. Wow.
1919. So it's and 1929 I was actually drinking beautifully.
Wow, super.
So that's good. Now let's talk about the interesting. Let's talk about your wine. Tell us about Crafton. I think it's. I tasted early on, and I've when you went to look for a better sound, which you thankfully achieved. I've mentioned the two other wines I was tasting, and the Lisbon wine from Lisbon is really elegant, really subtle. I was surprised. It's a wine that it was not overdone. They didn't try too hard, and it's really it shows really well. And only 13% alcohol, and very ripe, and everything is great. And then the Alentejo much more exuberant and so on. And then I tasted the Crasto, which is 2016, and it was really for me. It was really generous, really expressive. He retained a sense of place. This really is Douro. You can tell it's wine from Douro. Yeah. He respected the terroir. But here, beautiful purity of fruit, exceptional, really exceptional concentration. Yes. I can see now you're telling me about 1997, because the one thing that jumped out to me tasting this wine, it was the tannins. The tannins, they were firm, but they were fine grain, and they were really sophisticated. And this wine, honestly, if I had a case, I would just leave it because it's gonna age for a long time. The alcohol, despite I had to look for the alcohol because it's high, but it didn't show on the wine. I think it's the label says 14.5, but I didn't feel hot at all. So the alcohol was pretty well integrated. But the tannins for me, they're still feisty, and it's still. So tell us about this wine, Manuel.
Well. So first of all, I was just getting my glass. It was there. First of all, it's the 16. So 16 was a very interesting year. We had a winter with quite a lot of rain until spring, and so it was very important for Tinta Roriz that, because we had some good reserves of water on the soil. So during maturation season. And again, the vineyard plots of Tinta Roriz, and we have 3 vineyard plots with different orientations, all very different, and which is very good when we are in a region like the Douro, because we can have different styles of fruits. So, but one thing that is very important is that the soil that we have there, it's a very poor soil, but then we have a clay surface that can retain a little bit of the water on the soil, and so we have good capacity to retain a little bit of water. And so the vines, during the dry season, if they have that availability of water and good canopy, it's halfway to things to be right and to get out.
Manuel, we lost a little bit of your. I lost a little bit of your sound. That's better.
Okay.
Yeah. Can you repeat what you just said? It went a little bit low. The sound. Just repeat it.
I'm sorry. So I was saying when at Crash we have 3 plots, and the
Yeah.
Tinta farm has a little bit of a. It's a very dry soil, but has 1 meter deep. It has a surface of clay that can retain water, and that's very important for the maturation of the fruits and to prevent the situation of the blocking of the vines. So 2016 was very, very important because we had a good winter and we had good water on the good reserves on the soil. So maturation was very, very fine. Also, we had a late harvest, so it was very important to make sure that that the maturation of the fruits was complete. So we had to risk. We had 2 days where we got some rain because these are not vines irrigated, and it was on the 24th and 25th of August of 2016 that we had a couple of showers in Krastu, and it was very important to that water to make sure that the vines would keep going and maturing well the fruit. So I really like the 2016 wines because they are wines that have a lot of tension on the palates, a beautiful concentration, like you said, but also good freshness, and that is very, very important for the Tinta Roriz. And then in the winery, if we have the fruit, if it's good, then it's just making sure that we are there to take the right decisions. It's we are going to another harvest, and it's I'm really lucky because I love what I do, and each year it's a new challenge. There are no recipes, so it's being in a winery and thinking and doing every day, going back with the memories that we have, the mistakes that we've done, and trying to be better every harvest, every day, and that's how we move forward. And Tinta Roriz, it's I really believe that it's one of the greatest varieties in Portugal and in the world. That's for sure.
I'm just looking at a couple of questions. It's an interesting question again from Sao Paulo. Thank you, Agilson. In terms of drinkability, I mean, I'm going to tell you from what I'm tasting here, all those wines are about 5 years old, and they are just beginning to be approachable. If I had another bottle of ideally you have 6 bottles of something like this, and you keep tasting one every year and see how it goes. But I think it needs. If I had another bottle, I would wait another 3 years or 3 or 4 years because it's got so much exuberance of fruit. It's got so much tannin still, and it's not the aging is very, very slow. It's aging quite slowly, so I think it's I don't know. I said to you, I've tasted some old Tempranillo. This is, I think it will live well past 20 years. No, Manuel?
Yes, for sure. I would risk here these wines. I would risk at least after bottling 30 years. And drinking this wine now, the wine is a wine normally that has some edges on the palate, which is normal for this grape variety. It's a very gastronomic wine as well. It's I think this wine needs food, but for me it's too young to drink this wine. I think you can get a lot of pleasure now, but if we want to reach the peak, we need to
wait a little bit.
Yeah, I normally say, you were saying to buy a box. I normally say it's better to buy 2 because because you can drink the first one and say, okay, let's every year you drink a bottle and says, okay, this is the moment, and then you invite some friends and you drink the other box. But I think that's the way you should do it.
I think I've been privileged to have wines from three different terroirs, and I explain to people what I am tasting in the glass with these three wines. But in your experience and working in Tejo and working in Alentejo and Douro, obviously, what is can Tinta Roriz express the terroir? Can you see the difference in terroir? For me, it's very clear here, but can you see it from a winemaker's perspective? And if so, how does Tinta Roriz manifest itself in different terroir?
It's a great question, Dirceu. I believe the terroir sometimes rules more than the variety, and but of course, when we're talking about the Tinta Roriz, when we drink a Tinta Roriz, we should recognize the Tinta Roriz. Sometimes it's not easy if in the winery we don't respect what comes from the vineyard. But if we respect, we should find the Tinta Roriz main characteristics. Of course, there is a huge difference of the Tinta Roriz that you have in the Douro or the Aragonez that you have in the Alentejo. Like you were saying, that we have three wines here, and the Aragonez you have in Região de Lisboa, the wine of Portugal. Of course, all of them are quite different, but I think there is the main characteristics we should get them. The tannin should be there always. So when we're tasting a serious Tinta Roriz, we need to find the tannin. And that is something that's very typical. But it can be also the styles of vinification can also change a little bit the identity of the wine. Of course, if we don't do if we don't use if we don't extract too much, or if we extract too much, that can differentiate a lot. So. But I believe it's a variety that it's not so difficult to identify.
Okay. There was a good question there, because we were talking about early on about viticulture and how the grape doesn't like conditions that are too dry, and it goes into hydric stress. Somebody posed a question, which is a good question. What happens if there is a lot of rain? How does Tempranillo or Tinta Roriz, how does it behave?
Well, depending on the timing when it rains, okay? Because of course, if the soil is very fertile and has a huge amount of capacity to retain water, the wine loses a lot of concentration. So we will get some big bunches, and actually we can in the Douro we can have the biggest bunches we can find of probably a red variety. It can be Roriz. We can go from 1 kilo to 100 grams. So it's a huge difference. And but if we get a lot of rain during the growing season, of course we can have the vegetal problems. If we have a lot of rain on the end of the maturation season, we can damage it's a variety that really how I'm going to say this, it really likes water, so the berries will become very big and we lose again concentration. And so it's sometimes I say it's better to, if we see there is a lot of rain coming, to pick immediately, because otherwise the variety will absorb all the water available on the next days and will be worse. So
okay.
Yeah.
And another observation and another question, which I think is interesting too. Thank you very much, guys, for your questions. And I really apologize if I've missed any questions. But there's a question here. Say, if I have missed a question, please repost it, and I'll keep an eye on it from now until the end. But there's a question here: can it be over-oaked? And I tell you, it can. And I'll let Manuel answer that. But from my perspective as a critic, yeah, it can. And in many examples of of Tempranillo can, and they are overoaked, but it depends. It's you find Tempranillo also interesting. We didn't talk about so much, but we're talking about Portugal. But it's good sometimes to open our minds. And I'm not going to talk too much about Spain. We all know about Rioja and Ribera del Duero, etc. But it's also grown. So we are aware it's grown in Argentina. There's some good examples of wines from Argentina. It's grown in Uruguay. There are a couple of really good examples of Uruguay, Brazil. I've seen Tempranillo from Bolivia, from Chile, from Australia. There's Willowbridge makes a good example. Gentry makes a good example. What else? Switzerland, I've seen stuff grown. Croatia. There's some Tempranillo in the south, in Dalmatia. Everywhere in USA, I've tasted some good examples. Mexico, New Zealand. So it's grown everywhere. Have you had any experience of the variety outside Portugal and outside Spain?
No, I worked in Australia, but I hadn't had the opportunity of working with Tempranillo. But I knew that already Portuguese grape varieties there in Australia. There were already Touriga Nacional and some Tempranillo. But I've tasted some Tempranillo. That was very interesting. That was from a good friend of mine that worked in Crasto. Some years ago. It was Dominic Morris. He was doing some. Dominic was. He has planted some Tempranillo, and it was great wine. Yeah, but with. It's you could see that you're tasting the wine. It's not the Douro, but it's the varieties there. So it's very
yeah. Yes. There's a question here about more about vinification. I can help on that. I have a little bit of experience. You probably know better about fermentation. Do you use native yeast or inoculate? I mean, it depends. I am not against inoculation. It's give the winemaker more control. You know what you're doing.
No, normally I don't use any. I use native yeasts. So what I do is, if I see that I can have problems with genetics of the fermentation, then I use industrial yeast, but always, and that's for all the wines that I do. It's I try to use always neutral yeasts, okay, that don't change the identity of the wine, both whites, reds, everything. When I'm sure that the fruit is in good shape, that it's coming into the winery, that I won't have any raisins that will have a lot of sugar that will be released during fermentation, and that I won't have a problem on finishing the fermentation well. Because for me, I think it's very important just to make sure that the fermentation goes well until the end, and I have a clean aromatics and everything is safe. So I'm very practical in that way of making wine, and so if there is not a problem at the beginning, if I don't guess there is going to be a problem, what I do is I use native yeast always.
Yeah, it shows sometimes that I admire your honesty. This is why you are such a good winemaker, because a good winemaker, he knows its vineyard, and he knows when to act, when to react, and it depends what you want to achieve. And even I know some top chateaus, Premier Cru Classé chateaus, they inoculate exactly for the same reason you described, and there's nothing wrong with that. Just give you control. And if you want a neutral yeast, just gonna convert the sugar to alcohol, you do that. If you want an yeast that will give you a little bit of, and the yeast will not gonna make a wine. It's just going to if the grapes are bad, you're gonna have a bad wine. But if you need to to a degree improve the quality of the wine, yeast can help, in my opinion, as long as all the precursors are there. Because if the precursors are not there, you're not gonna get anything anyway. But there are certain yeast, for example, if you want to enhance the level of lovely berry aromas, use a type of yeast called Clos. if you want to create more mouthfeel, in depending which variety, also there is one yeast I use in protocols. It's called BM 4x4. It gives more texture, more glycerol. Anyway, and anyway, there are many different ways to interpret the terroir and so on.
Of course, yeah.
And I like your answer. Manuel, we got a few more minutes to talk about. I want to ask you a question about marketing and selling Tinta Roriz. What is necessary for Tinta Roriz to get more fame, more international recognition, in your opinion?
I think our neighbors, the Spanish wines, they did a lot of they already did a very good job, and I think that's there is a huge recognition of the variety of the variety already internationally. But Portugal, no. Portugal, the truth is not, because there is not a lot of people betting on the single variety wines of Tinta Roriz. I believe we should bet more on the Tinta Roriz as a single variety wine, because it has a lot of advantages. It's a wine that can last in bottle for a long time, can age well in bottle, and can show well with bottle aging. So I think it's safe to do that. It's a wine that can handle well the oak. Of course, we need to choose the good oak for it. But if we are able to produce high quality premium wines, and to say that they are a single variety Tinta Roriz, that will help to have a better recognition internationally. But marketing, it's that is more about the institutes, of course, that I believe that there is a lot still to do in marketing in general, in marketing about Portuguese wines. I truly believe on our quality. I had the opportunity of working before of working in Portugal to work in Australia, in France, and US, and I think we are doing well now, but we need to do much more and be more dynamic, and this is a good example of what we're doing here, Dirceu, as you're inviting me to have this talk, and this very honest talk, and talking about my experience about Tinta Roriz, and reaching internationally through Instagram, people that are knowledge and they want to learn more about Portugal, and I believe it's the right message to pass. It's Tinta Roriz, Aragonez. It's a variety that it's very important. We have it since long time on our old vines mixed with other grape varieties. So the top wines of the Douro that are made from all vineyards, the Tinta Roriz, it's there.
Yeah,
it's there.
And
it's there in the vineyard. If you ask me about the percentage of Touriga Nacional in an old vineyard, it's much less, or almost non-existent, comparing to Roriz, because Roriz it's always a higher percentage in the old vines than much higher than Touriga Nacional.
Yeah, but yeah, of course. If you look at it out of, I think I look at some stats. It's just less than 6,000 hectares in the whole of Douro, which is a lot. And then second most planted, the region where the variety is most planted is Alentejo, and then down. So it's Douro is number one. But Manuel, I want to thank you very much for taking the time off your holiday to share your knowledge with us. Thanks, Wines of Portugal. We're doing those lives on behalf of Wines of Portugal. So thank you very much for believing on the work that we're all doing, and for all the organization, all the information that you share with us. And also thanks for the producer who sent me the wines, and I'll actually participate on the live. And thank you very much. And we hope to see you on the next live. I don't know exactly when it's going to be, but we're going to be talking about one of the varieties which I love very much, which is Encruzado. So keep an eye on my Instagram, and grab a glass of Encruzado, and we're gonna enjoy another conversation, with another great winemaker. But Manuel, go back, enjoy your holiday with your family. Thank you very, very much for your time.
Thank you so much, Dirceu. Thank you to all of the ones that were with us, and drink more Tinta Roriz, because I think it's a very interesting wine and very gastronomic. So take care, and thank you very much, Dirceu, for the invitation. Okay, bye bye.